This is why you can't afford a house in 2025. And we're going to go through the brutal truth in this video. So let's start with the cold, hard data. So in January of 2020, you needed about $51,600 a year to be able to afford a typical home in the United States. Okay. So fast forward to January of 2025, you now need $92,538. That is a 79% increase in just 5 years. And just to be clear, these numbers are based on conservative assumptions. So what we're using is a 20% down payment. We're spending no more than 30% of our income on housing, and it's for a median priced home, not some McMansion, okay? So what's driving this insane affordability squeeze? Let's get into it. Okay, so during the pandemic, we had the perfect storm. We had ultra low interest rates, we had stimulus checks flying around, and we had a massive shift to remote work. Okay, so those three things, they led to a surge in housing demand. So here's the problem though. The supply couldn't keep up. So in fact, the Fed estimated that home building would have needed to increase by 300% just to meet the demand spike. So that didn't happen. What did happen? Prices exploded, okay? It's supply and demand. It's basic economics. Take a look at this highlighted text right here. Since new construction typically accounts for about 15% of supply, our estimates imply that new construction would have had to increase by roughly 300% to absorb the pandemic-era surge in demand, okay? So from January of 2019 to January of 2025, the typical U.S. home value jumped from $247,000 to $356,000. This is a 44% increase. Then came the rate shock. So mortgage rates went from under 3% to over 4%, and making monthly payments became way more expensive. So this combo of sky-high prices and rising rates absolutely nuked affordability. So take a look at these two screenshots here. This one is from January of 2020. This one is from January of 2025. And this is interactive. Okay, I'll give you a real life example. But if you look at the colors, that's what I'm trying to show you. Yellow is $50,000. Dark blue, purple is $250,000. Look how everything becomes darker just 5 years later, significantly darker. So let me give you an example. Okay, I don't want to just look at colors. We'll do something in the Midwest. Let's do Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a good example. So in Milwaukee, in January of 2019, the household income needed to afford a typical home was $56,339. Fast forward to January of 2025, it is now $110,000. If you look at Indianapolis, $38,900 to $75,000. If you look at somewhere in Texas, let's do a couple of these. Dallas went from $64,000 to $109,000. Houston, $50,000 to $86,000. Austin, $78,000 to $123,000. And if you do the coasts, well, let's do Vegas first. Vegas went from $57,000 to $108,000. If you look at Phoenix, basically doubled from $56,000 to $112,000. Let's take a look at Los Angeles, $137,000 to $244,000. San Diego, $122,000 to $240,000. You guys get the picture, okay? I don't want to bore you to death. You can just take a look at this link and come to your own conclusions depending on where you live. But I wanted to show you something in this chart. So if we take a look at how much those have risen by, if you look at the average weekly earnings of all employees, let's go to January of 2019, just so we can show you the same numbers. Average weekly earnings of all employees January of 2019 was $951 a week. If we fast forward to January of 2025, that went up to $1,221. That's not a 100% increase like we saw in some of these markets. Yes, the Midwest didn't have that big of an increase compared to like the Los Angeleses, the Austins, those kinds of markets. But if you look at the wage increases, the wages have not gone up as fast as the housing prices have gone up. So why does that matter? Because this isn't just a housing market problem, okay? You're probably thinking like, oh, this doesn't affect me. I already bought my house, right? This is a macro problem, a macroeconomic problem. High housing costs are freezing labor mobility. So people who are talented, they can't afford to just get up and leave and buy a house somewhere or even rent, because rents, which I'll show you later in this video, are doing pretty much the same thing. Okay, so they can't afford to move to get the best jobs. Number two is delaying family formation. People can't afford to start or grow families. Demographics are destiny when it comes to a nation and when it comes to an economy. Number 3, dragging down consumer spending. More money going to housing means less money going to everything else. I had to redo budgeting rules, budgeting videos, because of how expensive everything is getting. That's the 50-30-20 rule. I had to turn it into like 70-20-10, okay, just to account for this. So if you think this doesn't affect you because you already own a home, as I mentioned earlier, you have to think again, because sluggish home sales mean fewer buyers in the market. And if nobody can afford to move up or downsize, that gridlocks the entire market, okay? So if you can't downsize, you can't move up, no one's moving, right? Especially people that got in with low interest rates. Why would they give up that asset, that 2.5% 30-year fixed rate mortgage, just to move to get into a 6-7% 30-year fixed rate mortgage, right? Doesn't make any sense. So let's take a look at CPI for all urban consumers. This is important, you guys, because I also want to show you what it went from 2019 in January. It went from 252, and then if we look at January of 2025, we are at 319, okay? That's a huge increase. Look at this huge spike just over these last 5 years. Everyone knows that everything's gotten expensive, more expensive, and this is just CPI. We all know that CPI, things have gone up that matter, 50%, 75%, 100%, right? But CPI is more of a basket. Everything is getting more expensive. We know this, and I want to show you this in this chart right here, but I also want to tell you what you can do. I don't want to throw too much data at you right away. So what is the takeaway here and what can you do? Okay, if you are in the market for a house, you need to get strategic. You have to keep saving for that down payment, even if 20% seems like a mountain that you have to climb, okay? Even if it feels so far off. Consider house hacking, okay? You can always get a roommate. You can always buy a duplex and rent one side out to make the mortgage more affordable, if not free, okay? Or you can always live in a more affordable market. I know that sounds crazy to some of the younger people listening to this. You don't always have to live in a, high rise in Miami Beach, okay? Or, Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, San Diego, whatever. You can live in St. Louis. You can live in Detroit. You can live in Buffalo, okay? You just have to put on a few extra layers during the winter. So get your income up, side hustles, promotions, new skills. We talk about that on this channel all the time, whatever it takes. And above all, you need to know your numbers. Don't stretch yourself too thin to just keep up with the Joneses or keep up with your buddies that you graduated with. So just because prices are up doesn't mean you have to make a dumb financial decision, okay? So let's take a look at this chart right here, and then I'll get to my thoughts. So the cost burden of housing varies depending on where you live, okay? So this is from actually 2023. So share of households in each state that spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs, and you can see the different colors. Basically, the lightest is 0 to 10%, and then the darkest is 50%. So if you look at all households nationally, 31.3% feel burdened, okay, or spend more than 30% of their income on housing. If you look at renters, 49.7% of renting households are quote unquote cost burdened. And you can see where it is. It's all on the coast. It's all down south. It's the Floridas, the Texases, the Californias. Look at the homeowners with a mortgage, 27.1%. And then look at the ones who don't feel cost burdened or have more than 30% of income on housing costs. Duh, it's the people without a mortgage, okay? That's common sense. But look at the renters, man. This is crazy. And my thesis on this for a long time has been with the inevitable M2 money supply going up and money printing going up and stimulus and all these things that are just inflating the money supply, of course that's going to flow into one of the biggest financialized assets in the world. It's housing, it's mortgages, right? So number is going to keep going up and to the right. It just depends on if your wages are going to keep going up and to the right as fast. Here's a hint. They're not. They haven't. They're not going to, okay? That's why you need to invest. That's why you need to save in hard money that keeps up with inflation. So at the end of the day, I do think that we're becoming a nation of renters. We're going to be like a Germany, for example. It's inevitable. We're going to summon self-driving cars to get us. We're not going to own a car. We're going to rent our dwellings. We're going to live in the pod in the city because that's where jobs are going to be, right? So if this video opened your eyes, do me a favor. Smash the like button. Actually, don't smash the like button. Gently click the like button, gently click subscribe, and gently check out WhiteBoard Finance University. It's my private community. This will take your personal finances to the next level and teach you how to become financially free. We have 3 evergreen courses: budgeting, stock market, and real estate investing. And then we also have live streams with me every week and a vibrant community. Check it out. Stay smart, stay strategic, and as always, have a prosperous day, day.